Excellent.
Yep.
To call to order this special meeting of the Genoa Township Board of Trustees zoning meeting. Today's date, September 18th, 2024. It is 6:30 p.m. Can I get a roll call, Joe?
Roll call, trustee Antonetts.
Here.
Trustee Vaughn.
Here.
Trustee Goodman.
Here.
Also present this evening is Joe Schaefer, Director of Development and Zoning, and Paul Benson, Deputy Zoning Inspector. This meeting of the Township Trustees will be recorded. The meeting audio and written minutes will be available on Genoa Township's website at genoatwp.com or by contacting Genoa's fiscal office. At this time, I'd like to call to order the following hearing at 6 p.m.
6:30.
I'm sorry?
6:30.
6:30 p.m. And I'd ask anybody who would intend to speak to be sworn in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Thank you. This is case number ZC 2024-03, Olive Branch Final Development Plan. Mindy Kostman requesting approval of final development plan to construct an approximately 2,400 square foot office building on approximately 1 acre at 5064 South Old 3C Highway, Westerville, Ohio, 43082. Property identification number 31724003019000, currently zoned planned commercial district, also known as the Olive Branch ZC case number 2024-03, continued from August 15th, 2024. The following exhibits were revised or added. Exhibit C, sign-in sheets. Exhibit G, revised staff memo dated September 11th, 24. Exhibit H, revised staff technical review dated September 11th of 24. Exhibit I, all public comments received between April 15th and September 18th of this year. And Exhibit J, revised plans received September 4th, 2024. This time I'd ask Joe to provide a brief staff report.
Yes, sir. So the memorandum's been updated. Everything's highlighted and underlined of the changes. Paul's going to bring up the plan momentarily. I'm not going to describe in detail the layout. It's the same sort of general layout. I think the board directed the applicant to go at the last meeting with the building more towards the center of the site and the parking moved to the north. The height of the building's changed slightly, but it's still compliant. We're down to 16 parking spaces on the site, and I'm going off of the version we got on September 4th. But I will talk about some of the responses they sent to me yesterday to the best of my ability. Excuse me. I didn't get a lot of time to look over the changes. I was pretty tied up myself today with regional planning and whatnot, but I did get a chance to at least look at everything very quickly. The revised location of the proposed parking lot creates some encroachments. The divergence I said was probably going to be needed. They apparently agree because they've now included that in their updated materials as a divergence request. There were some questions about they'll still need to revise. There's another portion of the development text that has all the divergence listed. They'll still need to update that, but that's more of just a housekeeping item as opposed to a compliance item at this point. Regards to the drive aisle width, there were some pinch points I noted and some parking space measurements that I questioned. In the latest materials you'll see, they did fix the one. I still am unclear as to whether or not, so I'm just going to point to them real quick. My concern was this space because this gets rounded off and sort of cut the space off. There should have been a line here, a 20-foot line here. So you'll see on the new plans, they gave you a little hatched painted area to ensure that that space is full 20 feet in length on both sides. You have a little bit of the same condition here because of how this curve works, where this space is technically a little shorter than 20 feet on this side. I'm not sure I saw that on their latest revisions that got corrected. My other concern was, I don't know how, if that 25 feet carries through, but if that goes out to 20 feet, does that cut into that 25 feet and slightly maybe pinch that drive aisle down? Relatively minor amount, but if it does, we need to figure it out or at least document it. So I'm sure they can talk more about that in their presentation. I made a comment about with this new driveway layout, even though they're not interested in providing cross connectivity to the adjacent site to the northeast at this time, I will say a benefit of this layout is, should that opinion ever change, that this layout would accommodate that easier than the prior layout did. Again, they're not interested in providing that cross connection at this time, but I do like that we've set ourselves up there where it might be able to happen in the future. I still have a little bit of concern. They provided an exhibit on this to help try to, I think, clarify the issue and show how it's going to work. I have a little bit of just concern about how, if you're in those 3 parking spaces to the west of the accessory building, just backing out of those spaces might be a little difficult. Number one, if you're at that space at the very end, you've got to make somewhat of an unnatural backing out maneuver to get out of that space. They do show an exhibit that it can be done. To me, it's just a little atypical. And then I also have a little bit of concern as to whether or not that accessory building is going to block the view. Is that if you're trying to back out of that space and you're trying to look to your left to see if anyone's coming, that building's a little bit going to be in your way. So I don't know if there's really much that can be done on that front. If you eliminate all 3 parking spaces, I think it drops them down below the parking requirement under the code, and I'm sure they're not eager to lose too many more spaces because they've already dropped a few from this site already. Moving forward, sorry, it's all jumping around. We still don't have a sidewalk on Big Walnut Road. The applicant's position is they'd prefer that sidewalk be in the Big Walnut Road right-of-way if it gets built. So they still have the divergence on that item. They did provide on one of the updated drawings an easement that would connect, that could potentially allow for the sidewalk on the east side of the building to be connected down to any future sidewalk along Big Walnut Road. I'm not exactly sure how that would function. I think on the previous version of the drawing, I had asked for something similar, but that's when it was like a foot difference between where the sidewalk was probably going to be and where their building sidewalk was going to be. Now it's a little bit of a further distance, and I'm not sure if the township would ever really build a sidewalk that far into a site to connect into basically their sidewalk system. So like it maybe for something for them to be able to do in the future if they ever wanted to do it, but I'm not sure it's something we would necessarily want to do. Like I said, it was different when it was like a 1 foot little thing, and if we were building a sidewalk along Big Walnut and we just notched out a foot to the north, that's one thing, but to go 12 plus feet into a site is something else, in my opinion. There is one more parking lot light on the site as a result of the revised parking lot. I go through ad nauseum describing all the landscaping proposed on the site. I don't think I'm going to go through all that and count it all up for you. I think you can see the drawing, you see what it is, and I've just sort of written out there in text what it is. They are still going to need divergences for numerous parking standards, or landscape standards, excuse me. One of the corrections there on the, if you're following along, on item I-9 under the landscaping section, I noted that on their landscaping drawing, they had calculated up all the frontage on the site to try to sort of explain how their landscaping plan and countings were working and comparing to the code. I did note that they needed to count the entire perimeter of the site and not just the frontages along the road, so they have fixed that on the revised materials. I did check that. Again, that really doesn't change anything from a compliance standard. I just didn't want you to think, oh, well, the difference between plantings, number of plantings we provided isn't that much, because the prior calculation didn't take into account all the linear frontage that it should have. Sorry, I want to go quick, but I also don't want to miss anything. It's just one freestanding sign now to the west of the driveway, approximately 10 feet off of Big Walnut Road. So basically, any of the divergences pertaining to the sign have gone away now, which is good. The existing septic tanks would be relocated southwest of the storage building. A replacement mound area west of the current mound has been designated on the site. they've submitted a lot of records in regards to the soils and septic and stuff as part of their revised materials. I'll let them speak to that. I think they testified at the last hearing, and I just wrote it in here, that the county's now telling them they're exempt from providing on-site stormwater detention, but there will be storm sewer installed that is strictly intended for conveyance to the storm sewer proposed as part of the roundabout improvements. And I think they have correspondence in their latest revised materials regarding that matter. Then as I go through the divergences, I noted, again, because the site changed, some of the divergences needed to change and stuff that wasn't an issue, now was an issue. So there was a couple different code sections that need to be cited in the divergences to making sure we're capturing all of those. There was some screening in the far northwest corner of the site that wasn't there that triggered possibly the need for some landscape divergences, but they've adjusted that on the latest set of drawings we received, which I think is what Paul Benson has up right now. They changed all the measurements and setback numbers that are in all those divergences have all been updated. I've updated them here in the memo. I'm not going to go through all of them unless you have a specific question about one. The only numbers I still had a little bit of question on, I'm going to let them touch upon it. We've changed so much stuff and so many numbers. Sometimes I have a hard track of keeping tabs on all of it. The measurement between the proposed principal building, the existing accessory building, our prior documentation had it at 15.67 feet. I'm not sure if that's still accurate. And it also had the measurement between the proposed building and the house to the northeast under old documentation is approximately 98.7 feet. I wasn't totally clear in understanding as to whether or not that figure was still accurate. So hopefully they know that number and can tell us. Because if those numbers do need to change, then your script needs to change, because that's what we have in the script. There was very minor discrepancies on the building setback measurement. I mean, we're talking about like 1/10 of a foot kind of thing. They have pointed to some language that they have on the drawings to help clarify all that, and they've made the materials consistent regardless. We're also using the words approximately throughout all these divergences in the script, because if something moves 1 or 2 inches or something, I don't want to have that blow up in anyone's face. Again, some of it's just getting the text updated, tweaked here and there to match the current proposal. Sorry, I know this is a bit of a hodgepodge of review, but I'm just hitting the highlights. And I think, at least in a very big picture sense, that covers everything. So it's probably more beneficial to hear from the applicant. So at this point, I will end my presentation and turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you, Joe. At this time, we'll invite the applicant to come up.
Thank you.
This is one you was in your email, right?
Yeah.
This is everything we've received in the email the last couple days.
Okay. Anything new you want to add? Comments? Clarification?
Mindy Cosman, 5618 Harrow Glen Court, Galena, 43021. Thank you for convening tonight to discuss our project. I think Joe's done a nice job kind of recapping. I don't think there's a lot of surprises from the last meeting. We've not adjusted anything in a truly meaningful sense. I think one thing that came up with it significantly last meeting was talking about the septic system, and we were able to address that when the septic crew initially came out. They were not entirely clear on the property line on the west side of the property and thought it was further east than it was, and so there is plenty of room there for a backup septic mound, and we had soil studies done that demonstrate that that is appropriate soil for that should our current septic system fail. So you'll see that noted. We did clarify the tributary issue, and that is in writing in the emails that you've received from Delaware County. And of course, the sign moved, and that was really just for more visibility. I thought that having it on the east side of the driveway with the landscaping that we have there, it would potentially kind of get buried and not really serve the intended purpose. And so that is the rationale for moving the sign to the west of our driveway. As far as some of these other things that are brought up, this is definitely not my wheelhouse as far as the measurements and all of those things, so I'm gonna defer to my team for that, but we do appreciate all of the hard work that you have in looking over the many, many, many documents that we have submitted, so thank you for that.
Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, Ben Schilling, 122 South Otterbein, Westerville, Ohio. I just wanted to note that we did make note of the comments on some of the radii resulting in what appeared to be less than 25 feet and 20 feet in the parking spaces. So we did make some modifications to ensure that there is 25 feet minimum in the drive aisle and a 20-foot long space. So those changes should be reflected in those materials. It's just kind of we tried to align the building with the existing building and just the odd geometry of the site. It was kind of made the 25 feet aisle kind of a weird shape through there, but we think the modifications we made address those comments. I think the other thing that Joe noted in his comments was some discrepancies that we had with some of the separations, some of the measurements between the buildings and from the property lines or the setbacks. So those should also be corrected in the materials. So I think that was it from civil perspective.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing more, we'll open it up to public comment. Anybody? Hearing none, we move on to board discussion.
I have a question about the sidewalk, right-of-way in the front. Can you address why you don't want to give an easement? And maybe what the plans are? Should the township ever want to build a bike path through there, what are our options?
There's no issue with allowing some type of sidewalk through there. I guess the question is, where's the easement on the property to the west, and how would that align? Our preference would be that something like that be in the right-of-way as opposed to on the property itself.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like the proposed right-of-way doesn't give you much room between the right-of-way and the proposed building, so.
12 feet.
Makes sense to.
Okay.
Right, but there's no issue of being a good community member and allowing a bike path or a sidewalk or
Thank you. And I
whatever
just
needs to be
wanted to
there.
get that on the record, by the way.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
How about the landscaping on the north side, particularly on by the parking lot? Will there be any screening at all on the north side abutting I know the next parcel is commercial, but the very northern section of parking, is there any landscaping there? The upper left-hand corner, yeah, right there. Paul has the cursor. What will be in that little spot? Does the parking lot go to the border?
There is some landscaping there, yeah.
So I guess I'm not 100% sure your question. If we're talking about the 6 parking places, then no, it's right up to the property line. So I can put something, I don't even know what that exact foot measurement is there, but I think we are building right up to the line, which is permissible based on the way that property is zoned. It wouldn't be ideal, but we don't have any space left to put anything
No.
there.
Yep, right there.
Yeah.
We don't have anything proposed there.
Mark with Holbrook with Kale Builders, 2355 Cross Creek Court, Lewis Center, Ohio. The revised landscaping plan does have it right where it turns up until the parking actually starts, but the parking lines with the commercial property next door, so it doesn't need it. But that little flat topping off does show on the landscaping plan C200, filling that in with some screening.
Okay, and then, go ahead.
But as you mentioned, there is no screening along the parking
Okay,
spots.
yeah, I just wanted to know. And I don't know, does the neighbor to the north have a fence there? Is it blocked or is it open?
It's open.
Okay. And then at the very end of your parking lot on the west side, are those small shrubs? Are they going to be trees? How big will that planting be? Tall, I should say.
In how many years?
Right.
There's a minimum requirement. We're meeting that. I don't know specifically the answer. They're like a narrow pine type of tree. Yes, yes.
Variance for the mechanical barrier, you're not putting a fence or anything at the end, correct, for screening?
Continuous vegetation would count.
Oh, got it, okay. My concern is if it's not tall enough, there's a residential lot that will be there eventually, and it'll be their back window. So I just want to make sure whatever's there is tall enough for headlights. And I know you said your office hours, you know, they'll be conducive, but should you ever sell, we don't know who will be in there and what their hours will be. So I just want to be cognizant to the people to the west that you're not going to have
This will
constant.
be taller.
Yeah, if they're arborvitae's.
They
I
are.
can contest, because we have them in our office and they're fast-growing and they.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Fantastic screening.
That's absolutely what I would have recommended
Yeah.
them to do. They're showing the planting height as being 6 feet,
Okay,
and those things can easily get.
but they need a lot of
depending on the
water.
Species can get really tall.
Yeah.
And they tend to die quickly, though, too. So
That-
is there
that's
a replacement
Yeah,
requirement?
yeah, because
They're on the drawing, I'll require them to replace. It doesn't have to say in the text that we
Okay.
we commit to replacing them.
Replace-
The understanding is if they're on the drawing, that you have to always have them.
With a minimum size?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
yeah, from personal experience, they
Yeah.
need a lot of water, like, yeah, an
Yes,
inch
they
a
do.
week or something, yeah. It's a lot. Okay, all right. That's all I have for now.
Well, you took a couple of mine.
Okay.
I'm still concerned, I know you just gave us this drawing about those last 2 spaces on the northwest corner, and that you really can get in and out of those. I still think they're going to be challenging. There's some people that can do that easily, and there's others that are going to do 2 or 3 tries at getting out of those parking spots. So yeah, I'm concerned, but I guess it'll work.
For what it's worth, I do anticipate that particular portion being staff parking. So I don't anticipate the in and out number of times per day being significant. That would be where I direct people who are leasing from me to be parking. That is where I plan to park.
And that would make me much more comfortable if you designated that as a staff area.
I don't plan to have signage there as such.
Well,
if
no.
that's what you're, just to
But-
clarify, but that is my intention,
Okay.
is that that would be staff parking there.
To encourage them strongly to park there.
Correct, yes.
Okay. All righty. Let's see.
And there's almost 60 feet there to back.
Is there,
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, it's,
Yeah,
sometimes on paper it looks different.
yeah.
that's what I was gonna say is, it's deceiving on the drawing, but hopefully that car helps visualize just how big the pavement section is in that area. It's a huge area to back out, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Regardless, and first off, let me say that we as trustees often hear that we have gone against the zoning commission's wishes. And, you know, at this point, we've required a lot of extra beyond what they had recommended. Part of that was us, part of that was the applicant recognizing that there were some challenges and things that had changed. And so this truly is a different plan that we're looking at today. And so this is nothing against the zoning commission, it is because it is a different plan, and the law says we can't remand it back to them, so we have to make the decision. So I want that on the record for residents that are sometimes concerned. Having said that, I would still encourage you as the owner and the leaseor to, when you or your renters send out information to new clients that whether on the website, a letter, or whatever, you explain the roundabout and how they get in and out of your place. There's a lot of challenges with roundabouts, people that frankly don't know how to get in and out of them appropriately. And this is just one more thing as to, gee, can I really cut across there? Can I make a left turn? Sign or not. So I think it might be helpful, a good customer service kind of thing to just say, here's how you get into our office from this direction, that direction. Just a suggestion, okay? Other than that, I like the alignment much better. I was very unhappy with that initial alignment of the driveway coming out into the roundabout. I think you've done a much better job there, so thank you for all your work. That's all I have.
I did review your correspondence with the county engineer. That was good to see. That answers one of my concerns about stormwater management. I appreciate that. I think you've addressed all my concerns. This landscaping plan is really helpful also. Help identify the screening that's primarily impacting the residential to the west. And then you've obviously done your homework on the septic. That's good to see. You got a reserve set up. And I think those were my only issues that I had. Oh, one question I did have, it's kind of not related, but I think it has to do with timing, which is, and I saw you alluded to it a little bit with the county engineer, is the timing of the roundabout versus your project when you have to line this thing up. I know that kind of challenge, especially for the civil, and if you're going to construct this, because that's not going to be where your curb, where they're going to build you this approach. So I don't know if you've considered your timing in relation to this roundabout.
Yeah, so the roundabout design is actually in our office too, so that's been helpful. My understanding is they're going out to bid. The plans are going out to bid soon if they're not out already. So we will need to coordinate with them and make sure that that the design is aligned. If we are ahead of them, we're going to have to work with the county to make sure that our curb cut is permitted. In our discussions with them, it'll just be a driveway permit. So we'll just need to tie into the existing infrastructure and then work with the county on how that gets integrated into the roundabout.
Okay. I think that's my only concerns, with the exception of with all of the nuances and changes. I'm going to ask Joe, are you comfortable with the way the form that's presented now approving this? Or do you anticipate more changes?
I think where I'm at now, I think were those measurements between the accessory building and the other building, are those still the active measure, the ones I cited, the 15.6 and the 98.7?
They should be corrected now in the materials.
Okay, I couldn't find them, so is there a chance you could look at it real quick and maybe just confirm that? Because we have it in the script, and I don't want you to read,
Yeah,
if
the
you do the motion
divergence.
tonight, I don't want you to, the motion to be wrong. So, yeah, from here to here, I didn't see that measurement.
Are you
Yeah,
talking about just like physically on this exhibit that we're looking at?
Yeah, even if you just know the number, I mean, I don't even necessarily need it on the drawing tonight, but
So right now you have 15.6 from the storage building and 98.7 from the existing house. That's in the script.
that was what we had previously, so I don't
Okay.
know if those numbers are still valid.
And
is,
if
I
it's
guess, my
plus or
point.
minus, I'm not going to hold this thing up.
In I could look real quick if we could just reword that to basically be as presented on the drawings, kind of thing. It's not a huge deal, again, I don't want some ticky-tacky thing
Yeah.
to be blown up into something it doesn't need to be. Other than that, there's a couple things, like the divergences need to be cited in the narrative for divergence request support and in the executive summary, but to me, that's nothing that should preclude a vote tonight. That'd be one of those things, if you just could put a condition on that outstanding staff comments need to be addressed sufficiently prior to the issuance of a zoning permit. And that's usually works better for the applicant too, because then we can go back and forth real quick over the matter of a day or two, with digital copies, get it all cleaned up, and then once I sign off on it, then they could do the final prints. So I think we're to the point where I could probably clean up the rest of this on my end before we issue the permit, if you're comfortable with that.
Okay. Okay. Any
For what
more?
it's worth, I mean, the engineering scale is here, and they did the survey and everything too, and if you look at that, it's gonna be within, I'll say 5%. You're 90, maybe 95 feet instead of 98, but it's probably dead on. If I had a bigger, we might look on the bigger scale of prints and scale things and let Ben make the final word for our team as a civil engineer, but I'm pretty sure that's, if it's
Could
off,
you
it's not
even-
off by much.
Even just, because I'm using the word approximately, so even it's scaled out, could you just round it to a number? Like what you're seeing between the building and the accessory building? And then the building and the building to the northeast?
Can we do that in the back and forth? Or do you want to do
Well, the problem is, they're gonna read all the divergences, and it's part of the data that goes in that divergence. So either we have to just strike that sentence and just pretend it doesn't exist, or. Oh, you wanna use the full-size ones? I have a,
full size with a rule?
I can go get you probably a scale.
Yeah, that would be.
I'm gonna say I was just saying, it's within 5% of that number listed, 98 feet on the house, and, but,
It's measured on here with a scale and with the.
yeah, and let Ben sign
I'll go
off
grab
on
you
it.
a scale. I don't know if we got number.
You can use my credit card measure, pocket engineer tool.
While we're waiting, I just want to make a couple comments. I appreciate you and your team working with us. And I feel like this is a much better plan than what the zoning commission approved. I think it's going to be great for the community and your business. I think it's going to be safer. I just appreciate you being flexible and going back to the drawing board after our first hearing. Appreciate it.
Thanks for giving us the opportunity to have that dialogue.
It definitely was not our intention to make it last this long, and we lost significant time and groundwork by the right in, right out issue, and that going unclarified or not well substantiated for 3 months, because that would have been a game changer for me early on. And so while finding it out the way that we did was definitely not ideal, I'm glad that it came to be in this phase so that we can address that, because that wasn't good for business now. It's not good for business later. It's just that was a deal breaker. So your reasons and my reasons overlapped at times, diverged at times, but ultimately I think that this has a lot of merit.
Oh, so we were real, so those are pretty close then.
5%. This has been a harrowing process, I'm sure, for everybody. And you all have made a lot of extra time that you wouldn't normally have to do necessarily. And as hard as it's been, well, they say when everybody has to negotiate and nobody's exactly happy or things, you probably had a good negotiation. As much work as this has been from everybody's standpoint, I think everybody will be able to be proud of this from an owner's standpoint, from the trustee's standpoint, and I think the community will eventually embrace it. And they can't say that there wasn't a due diligence throughout this process, because this has been a very diligent procedure to go through, but we do appreciate the final product. It's going to be, I think, beautiful at the end for a very difficult, small but difficult site. I mean, but thank you.
I normally don't do this, but could we just have like maybe a few minutes recess, and I can try to update all these divergences and make sure what you have in front of you is reflective of this?
Yeah, just.
Yeah.
give
I'm
me a
confident I
copy.
can do it.
Just give me a copy and I can read it. You don't have to
Okay,
make it
so, you wanna go ahead and just take a 5-minute recess so I can
That's fine.
jot it down real quick?
Time is 7:04. Take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'll call the meeting back to order. The time is 7:10. At this time, we'll do a divergence review. The board reviewed each divergence request against the standards set forth within section 2707 of the Township Zoning Resolution to determine if such request is warranted. So, bear with me. And
I will say, if you don't feel like you need to read all of them, you don't, at this stage, have to read all of them.
Oh, okay, then I'm not going to.
You'll need to for the motion, but if you don't want to do it twice,
Yeah.
I'll save you that heartache. If you're
Yeah,
saying you're comfortable with them,
yeah.
I think the record bears that out. at this point.
So, for the record, for those listening and concerned citizens, there's a lot of divergences on here. I think there's 9.
Yes,
But I will say in their defense, it's because the lot size pretty much be difficult to get our massive setbacks and get anything on this parcel. I mean, it would virtually be undevelopable. So a significant number of these all have to do with setbacks, side yard distances and such. So as a whole, it's not as daunting as the 8 would appear. Having said that, does somebody want to do the divergence review? Anybody?
No.
Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Why, as you said, I mean, I think there's nothing that can be done on a parcel that small, that oddly shaped, with losing more of it to the future roundabout. So there's not much choice. These are necessary to build
Yeah.
something.
I think we're all in agreement with that.
Yeah, and I agree, and I like the fact that this building is similar in size as the one that was demolished, right? So you just moved it, which in my opinion is better because it's away from the street. So I feel like it's an improvement.
Okay, having said that, I move to concur with the zoning commission's recommendation of approval and thus approve with modifications of the subject final development plan application submitted by Mindy Kosman to construct an approximately 2,400 square foot office building on property located at 5064 South Old 3C Highway, Westerville, Ohio, currently zoned planned commercial district as further described, detailed, and illustrated in the plans and materials of ZC case number 2024-03, also known as Olive Branch, and furthermore incorporating exhibits A through K, as well as any commitments made by the applicant during this hearing, including,
Did
we
we-
had one condition was.
Yeah, it was that the verbiage needs to be updated before a
materials
permit.
be updated consistent to staff commentary prior to issuance of zoning permit.
Okay, good. Okay. I further move to approve the subject final development plan with stated divergences from the following sections of the Genoa Township zoning resolution as further detailed in Exhibit D. Divergence 1 is a divergence from section 703.03A 3 and 4 to reduce the common open space buffer from 170 feet to approximately 12 feet from Big Walnut Road and approximately 51 feet from South Old 3C Highway. Divergence 2 from 703.03B to utilize a customized open space perimeter landscaping plan. 3, divergence from section 703.08A to reduce the parking lot setback from 170 feet to approximately 50 feet from Big Walnut Road right-of-way and approximately 112 feet from South Old 3C Highway right-of-way. 4, divergence from section 703.08B to utilize a customized parking lot landscaping. 5, divergence from section 703.10 to not provide a multi-use path or easement along Big Walnut Road. 6, divergence from sections 1203.03A and 1203.03B to reduce the 75-foot green space with mechanical barrier from a residential zone property to approximately 4 feet wide green strip from property ID number 317-240-030-018-007 and to utilize landscaping for the visual and or mechanical barrier in the approximately 4-foot wide green space. 7, divergence from section 120309 to reduce the 75-foot parking lot setback from the right-of-way to approximately 50 feet from Big Walnut Road right-of-way and approximately 112 feet from South Old 3C Highway right-of-way. 8, divergence from section 1208.01 to reduce the building setback from 100 feet to approximately 12 feet from Big Walnut Road right-of-way and approximately 106 feet from South Old 3C Highway right-of-way. Additionally, the proposed building is approximately 15 feet from the existing accessory building, approximately 98 feet from the existing building on the adjacent property to the north, approximately 51 feet from the northern rural residential property line, and approximately 74 feet from the western rural residential property line. 9, and final, divergence from 190301 to allow the proposed parking lot to encroach into required setbacks per plan. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I did have one question on divergence number 5. It says that they will not provide a multi-use path or easement along Big Walnut. Didn't you ask a question about getting the easement in the right-of-way along Big Walnut?
If it's in the right of way, they
You
don't
don't
need
get
to
an
provide
easement.
the easement.
It
'cause the
doesn't
right-of-way
matter.
is already
Okay, just double checking. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call, Joe?
Roll call.
Me.
Trustee Vaughn. Yep. Roll call, Trustee Vaughn.
Yes.
Trustee Goodman.
Yes.
Trustee Antonetts.
Yes. Approved.
Congratulations.
Thanks for your patience. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll.
Trustee Vaughn.
Yes.
Trustee Goodman.
Yes.
Trustee Antonetts.
Yes, the time is 7:17.